Hi, I'm Todd Nauck. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So we're currently working on this Young Justice sketch cover. Hopefully you caught the first video where I did the basic layout and initial sketching for the poses of each character, Impulse, Robin, and Superboy. If you missed that video, I'll have it linked in the video description below. Today is the first inking video. So we're going to work on Impulse first because he's in the foreground and I like to ink foreground to background. I'll be sharing some of my tips and tricks and approach to inking, as well as answering some of the questions you've posted on my social media. And if you're not following me everywhere on social media, all those links are listed in the video description below as well. So let's get to work inking Impulse. Okay, so here we go. Here's the cover. We'll zoom in here a little bit and get a little closer look on Impulse. So these are fairly rough pencils, mind you. This is truly a sketch. When I'm doing my professional comic book work, I try to pencil a little bit tighter than this. Especially it helps the editor see more of the detail of the facial expressions and the different elements in the story. So when I'm doing my regular comic book work, it's tighter, and even when I'm doing covers, I pencil even more tightly. But this is definitely more of a commission style piece, so sometimes I keep it a little more sketchy, and for some reason I kept it extra sketchy this time. Though I will come in with graphite, with pencil, to tighten up certain areas that it's like, I need a little more information. So what I'm doing with the inking approach this go around is I'm going to ink with colored multi-liners. Pigma Micron pens, Arteza Inkonic pens, some Pitt pens as well, just for the different colors I want to utilize. It gives it more of kind of like this animated, cell animated sort of look. So right now I'm using brown for the yellow and light skin areas. It's this shade of brown that Pigma Micron offers. So I'm using my my 0.3 lead. It's a very, very fine point lead, HB lead. For the minute, the minuscule details here, the very tight detail areas. The regular pencil I use, the Staedtler Mars pencil, this is good for the broad strokes. I want broad strokes. I don't want something super fine when I'm going in for the initial sketching. I want to keep it broad. But when I'm going in for finer details, I like to use my Uni Kuratoga 0.3 lead mechanical pencil so I can get those really tight details, really get them figured out there. So so I'm just giving some more information for my brain for when I go to inks. If I'm just not clear on something, it's good for me to tighten up that area, to make, especially around the face area, to make sure I've gotten those details correct. And I'm also adding in here, as you see, the lightning bolts. I'd mentioned this in the first video. I'd probably come in the inking stage and flesh out where those lightning bolts will go, because when Impulse is running, using his Speed Force, like any speedster in the DC universe, there's going to be lightning bolts that are coming off their costume or elements of their costume, like the ear wing things, for Impulse's buckles on his wrists and ankles. Those are going to be the key points. They're the yellow parts, the gold parts of his costume. So that's where the lightning kind of comes off. Sometimes off the stripes on his uniform, though I'm not doing that this time here. So back to that brown Micron pen. I think I'm using the 01 there. Because these are fairly smaller characters on this sketch cover, I'll be using mostly 01, and not much larger than a 05 pen tip. Sometimes a double 05 for certain details that need to have a thinner, crisper line weight. But most of them are going to be the 01 and the 05. I have different, like I said, I'll be using different multi-liners, different brands of pens. So some I don't have a finer point. Pigma Microns, Pitt pens, I'm going to have Copic multi-liners are going to have a variation in line size. But the Arteza Inkonic pens, it's just a set of different colors, which has been great for when I want to do this type of color hold inking. But I only have just the one line weight of that set. It's like 24, 48 colors. In fact, I think I have it over here somewhere. I'll have it for the next video when we ink Robin. I'll have that to show. So I'll be using different colored multi-liners to indicate to kind of complement the color of the figure, the different elements of the figure, whether it be skin tone, hair color, costume color, accessories on their costumes. I'm going to keep in mind what color will those be when I go to color them. I want to use a darker color in the inking line color choice. So for yellow and light skin tones, I'm using the same shade of brown. I'll have a different shade of brown for his hair because his hair will be a bit darker. So I want to have a darker shade of brown so that the colors don't overpower the line weight. The colored line, or as we call it in the comic book industry, the color hold line color. I'll use like a dark red for his costume. So these are the things I'm keeping in mind when I'm choosing my inking line colors. So now I've switched to a darker red. This is another Pigment Micron pen, a dark red. I don't want to use regular red because his costume's regular red. So if I ink it with regular red, color it with regular red, then we're going to lose all that line. It'll blur into the colors, and I think I would lose that color hold effect. So I definitely want that darker red. Always thinking darker shade of whatever I'm going to color it to be. I think I made that point clear. And this is a 05 pen. It just because I currently don't have a thinner point for the darker red Micron, at least at this time. So I'm having to give it a very light touch if I need a thin line and not press down quite so hard. And that's the nice thing about inking. Even with a multi-liner, you can still get a variation of line weight by how much pressure you apply to the tip of the pen, also called the nib. So I'm doing the best I can to make the most of these shapes that I've sketched out. With the body, it's a little easier because it's just the simple big blocky shapes of the muscles, and like his costume is lightning bolts down the center, so I don't really have to go in and tighten those things up too much. So while I work on that, let's check out one of your questions here that have been posted. What is most important when putting together an art portfolio? So many of you want to break into the world of comics, and I often get the question, what should be in the portfolio? I've answered this question probably on other videos here on my YouTube channel, but I feel it bears repeating because it is such a common question. The things you need to have in your portfolio are storytelling pages, more so than like pinups or cover type images. It's okay to have some of that in there, but if you want to be a comic book creator, you need to be able to show you can tell a story visually. And that's anywhere from 3 to 5, 6 consecutive storytelling pages. Show a scene, not just one page scene, a series of one page scenes, but show a page turner for the editor so they can look at that one page, turn the page, and see how the story continues. They need to see you can maintain consistency in that storytelling process and bring the reader, or bring the editor or the reader, because they're going to think from a reader's perspective, what will their experience be? So you want to be able to give them a full 3 to 5, maybe 6 page scene. A lot of portfolios are like 40 pages. You can put like 40 pages of art in there, double-sided upwards to 80 pages. You don't have to fill out your entire portfolio to take to a convention to show an editor. It's okay to just have your 5, 6, no, really, you don't even have to go beyond 10 pages, because an editor can tell kind of where you're at just off that first 3 to 5 page scene. So it's not like you have to fill it up and have tons of stuff to show. Sometimes it's better to have less, have 3 to 5 solid pages, and leave the editor wanting more. Because like, oh, this is pretty good. I want to see more, and then they'll hopefully exchange. Hopefully they'll give you their business card, or you can have material to leave with them. What I did back when I was trying to break in was I would have photocopies. A little photocopy packet of everything that's in my portfolio. So that 5-page sequence, the 1 or 2 pinups, whatever I had in there, I would have as a sample packet to give to the editor in case I kind of got that vibe of, hey, they're digging what I'm doing. Well, hey, would you like one of my sample packets? Oftentimes they say yes, because it's a great resource. Maybe they have something for you later in the day. So it's just easy. It's easy for them to say, sure, I'd be happy to take that. Sometimes they'll say, no thanks. That's okay too. But in your sample packet that you leave with them, which are photocopies, size down. If you're drawing 11 by 17, have size down 8.5 by 11 inch photocopies. It's okay to size them down just because it's not as big and bulky and difficult for them to carry throughout the con or put into their backpack or briefcase or whatever. So nice little 8.5 by 11. Have it stapled, or one of those little presentation binders. You can get at Staples for real cheap. It's a little plastic with a little slide spine. You just have, that's what I did. And make sure you have your name and email address on every page, maybe on the back or somewhere that doesn't obstruct the art on the front, but every page, in case the packet falls apart between the convention and them getting back to the office. Because if it's only on the first page or only on the last page and the middle pages are the only ones that make it back to the office, oh, love this art, really enjoy talking to this artist, I don't know their name or how to get in touch with them. I met so many people. So make sure your name and email address at the very least are on every single page of your art in case the whole thing doesn't make it back to the office. Because that way they can always contact you if they liked what they saw and want to see more. So that's what I recommend to have in your portfolio. It can be Marvel characters, it can be DC characters, it can be a Marvel scene and a DC scene, and that's what I always did. I did a Marvel scene and a DC scene, and I tried to do like a Justice League scene and an Avengers scene or something like that when I was doing my samples, because then you're hitting lots of different offices at the same time. If you do a Justice League scene, you're appealing to the Superman editor, the Batman editor, the Wonder Woman editor, the Flash, Green Lantern editors, Aquaman. You're spreading out that interest amongst the company. Same thing with Avengers. You're hitting Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Black Widow, Black Panther. You're spreading out your interest to the people who are working on those different books, because one editor doesn't necessarily work on all the same characters. There might be the editor of Captain America might also edit Black Widow, but he might not be, or she might not be editing Thor or Black Panther. So it's good to spread out the possibility of enticing more editors with the characters they work with. Same thing, you can throw Spider-Man into a scene, a Spider-Man X-Men scene. Now you're hitting the Spider-Man office and X-Men office. Just kind of the way I would think, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Main thing is to do what you love. Bring your passion to the comic scene that you're drawing. Tell a good, solid story. A DC editor can look at Marvel sample pages and go, this person can tell a story. This person can move the camera angle around. They can give me light and dark areas. They can convey a lot of different emotions, draw compelling or fun or interesting or exciting story, panel by panel. That's what's key. That's what's critical. So having those packets in there is great. So you don't have to be just solely Marvel or solely DC. I would say probably don't do a crossover of Marvel, Spider-Man versus Batman. You can if you want, but I don't know. I just never went that route. But give it a try. Give it a try. But I try to stay company specific, but I'd be happy to show a DC editor my Marvel sample pages and vice versa. And you can do your own creator-owned stuff as well. If you have your creator-owned story, that's great too. And if you can actually make a printed comic of your creator-owned story, that goes a long way as well. It doesn't have to be a long comic. It could be a short mini comic, because then the editor is getting the experience of your finished product. It's like, okay, this is their property, and I got to read a little story here, got to know their character. Maybe they had fun reading that, and they could imagine, wow, this is really cool. I can imagine this person on Moon Knight. I can imagine this person drawing, Robin or something like that. So it just shows you got what it takes to see a project from beginning to end, and that can be a big challenge. And the best way to get through that and seeing a project from beginning to end is just start, and sometimes you have to push yourself. You have to push yourself to get all the pages done, and that's not always easy. And that's kind of what the industry is like. Sometimes you got to get in there, get drawing, and especially when you get hired, you can't not finish. If you don't finish, you probably don't get hired back to do another story. So it's good to get that practice in before you get hired of seeing a project through. And every person is different. For me, I'm kind of a workaholic, and not that I saw every project through when I was trying to do sample pages. Sometimes it would take me a month to do 3 pages, but I was young and I was trying to figure it out. And but it's just that repetition of practice, trying again, and learning from my failures, and that's just a great way to go. As Yoda says, failure is our greatest teacher, and I agree. My dad always encouraged that. He goes, "Don't worry about failing, just because that's going to happen. It's what did you learn from it, and how do you apply that to the next attempt, the next try. The only failure is not trying." So I know a lot of you young artists, you start something and it gets a little overwhelming, and that's okay. It's okay to feel overwhelmed, but it's learning how to navigate past around that overwhelmed sort of moment or feeling so that you can get that project done. So you can get your sample pages done. It's okay to feel whatever feelings are going on inside. It's just, if you discover you're letting it stop you, then there needs to be, you got to find that thing that's stopping you. Sometimes it's that soul-searching moment. I've had them myself. I've shared them here on my YouTube videos, and I'm sure I'll share them again or share more of them when the time is appropriate. So yeah, great question. Hopefully this info helps y'all when you're putting together your art portfolios for conventions. And we're kind of, convention season's winding down here in late 2023, but it'll start up again in early 2024. So now's a great time to start working on your sample pages. Try to get 3 done. That's my challenge to you. Get a 3-page scene done. If you can't write your own scene, and that's okay if you can't. You're not expected to necessarily be a writer, but you are expected to be a visual storyteller. You will get a script. If you get hired, you'll get a script from a writer, and you got to translate that to a visual story. Now, if you can't, because sometimes I couldn't think of a scene that I'd want to do. I'd make up my own scenes and I'd draw that out, but sometimes I'd kind of get a little writer's block and I couldn't really think of a scene. I learned a tip/trick and what you could do. If you can't think of a scene, grab a comic. Don't grab your comic by your absolute favorite artist. If you're a big Jim Lee fan, don't grab a Jim Lee Batman. Grab a Batman comic by someone else. Maybe grab a really old Batman comic that you never, artists you've never heard before, something like that. Go through and pick out 3 pages. Try to have action, try to have a quiet scene. Go through there and pick out those 3 consecutive pages, 3 pages in a row, not just 3 random pages, but 3 pages in a row, at least 3 to 5, bare minimum 3, 5 is really good too. 4 is allowable as well. 3 to 5 is the point I'm trying to make. Write down what you're seeing on that page. You don't have to necessarily write down the panel numbers, but you but write down what is happening. Gotham City, Batman. It's dark. It's stormy. Batman swings in. Commissioner Gordon's on the roof waiting for him. Commissioner Gordon turns and picks up something and shows it to Batman, and Batman is shocked, and then Batman swings away. Just whatever you see on the page, just write all that down. The emotions you're seeing, the details you're seeing, write that all down for every page. Take that comic and put it far away from you. Don't ever refer to it again. It is gone. It is no longer consequential. Now, this plot you have written out, tell your story based on that. However many panels it takes, change up camera angles. Do not recreate what you just saw, panel for panel, pose for pose, angle for angle. No, not good idea. You're not going to learn from that. You need to think on your own. The memory of what you saw will kind of be there. Try not to get caught up in that, but really try to think, okay, I'm remembering the angle is this way. What if I change the angle? How can I do it a little bit different? How can I do it my way? And I actually got hired off of that process. I couldn't think of something. I took a comic. I picked 3 pages, redrew them my way, and wouldn't you know, that was what put me over the top. And I got a call from an editor asking me to draw for the company. So and there's more to that story to come, but I don't really want to share more just yet because I think it'll play well in a future video. So I will share that story someday, and I will have the art to show, but I can't do it just yet. So we'll bookmark that. So let's get back to the inking here. Inking hair. Hair can be so much fun to ink. As you see, I'm working on Impulse's hair right here. It's the flow of the hair, and it takes a while to develop that swoop when you need, especially the longer the hair. but it's breaking it up into chunks. Much as I mentioned when I was penciling it, you have the chunks of hair, the shape, the graphic shape. There's the chunks, and then you have the wisps of hair that go through there that help convey the flow of the hair. Now with Impulse, he's kind of got the brown hair, but we have it kind of darker underneath that's closer to the root. And because he has such big hair, it's kind of casting a shadow. So I'm having darker hair towards the bottom, and then here on the top, that's where the light's hitting. That's where I'm gonna come in with the color and really put that light hair. I'm not trying to ink the whole hair in one swoop. I've broken it up into chunks. So it's a little easier. It's like bite-sized pieces. So when you're inking your hair, think of these different pieces of a pie almost in a sense, because it's starting from the hairline here and pulling out. So my hair here, it's like there's this chunk with the gray, there's this chunk, you got this bit right here, then there's that bit, then there's this bit. So you can see, and then where there's the part, and then there's the hair that falls over this way, and then it's like if I just broke it down into its most simple geometric shapes, makes it a little easier to draw the hair. And then I can draw some wisps in there to get help convey that flow of the shape. But you have your main shapes, and then you kind of break that down. I don't want to, my personal style, I don't really over render the hair, or at least I don't feel I do. And so that's one approach. Many of us have this approach in our inking of, or drawing of our hair, whether it be penciling, inking, maybe even coloring too. So, but hair can be a lot of fun. It's a challenge, but it's fun. But that's a part of it. Challenges can be fun if we think of the fun, of the challenge as a fun experience. It can be frustrating, but I liken drawing to playing video games. When you encounter that boss and that boss keeps beating you down, that's the challenge. But if the game's really good, you don't give up on the game just because the boss keeps beating you down. You find a way, you find the trick, you find the walkthrough that allows you to beat that boss. So if drawing hands is your boss, if it's drawing hair, if it's figuring out poses, that's okay. If you really want to do this, you'll find a way. And hopefully my videos are helping you in that, with me sharing my tips and tricks, and this is how I've beaten that boss. But you're still going to have your own experience. You're still going to have your own approach to it, whether you learn from me or other people. Hopefully you're learning from lots of different sources. I know there are a lot of great YouTube channels here that have great tips and tricks. So keep at it was what I'm saying. Don't let the challenges discourage you. It's okay to feel discouragement. It's just, how do we navigate that feeling? That's my main thought, is like, how do we navigate the challenges so that we can get to that next level? Like in the game, you want to get to that next level. You level up and the adventure continues. So now I've switched here to gray. I'm using gray for the white parts of Impulse's costume. I don't know why I air quoted white parts. It is actually the white parts. But when we color it, it'll be kind of like this. You'll see what I do. I use kind of a mixture of cool and warm grays, like these competing grays, to create a third gray by layering these two different shades of gray to create this kind of warmish but still coolish color to the white. There's lots of different ways that we can approach white, and you've probably seen me, or when I say approach white, is the shading of the white of a costume. You've probably seen it in my other videos. Usually it's cool gray with some blue. You kind of get that bluish white, like an Iceman or a Silver Surfer. Sometimes it can be more of a dingy white, like if it's like Venom's teeth, where I'll throw in a little bit of yellow. Just ways to think about it. So oftentimes I've experienced the white of Impulse's costume being a little more warm than it is cool. But I'm using a cool gray here just because it was the only gray I really had to work with, and I'm going to make it work here. So you'll probably see it here at the joints when I'm inking Impulse, or really most any character, like at the shoulders, the inside of the elbow, the knees. I like to put some wrinkles at where the joints bend, especially on the younger characters, that their costume fits well, but maybe not a little bit. I don't know. That's not even the best way to put it, because I do it on even adult superheroes. I just like to put a little wrinkle at the bends. It makes it, I don't know, I just like the shape of it. I like how it ties it into reality a little bit, and looks less like it's cloth that's been spray painted on the body. Sometimes it's necessary and it works, because not all cloth will wrinkle, on that we wear on real life, especially if it's kind of a Zentai suit or spandex or whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily always wrinkle at every point or every time, but sometimes it does. And I just find it to be really fun to draw. And I'm building up the line weight. That's one thing here that's I definitely need to address. Impulse is in the foreground. Impulse is, the first one we see. And kind of a broad way I think of inking is foreground is going to have thicker lines, background is going to have thinner lines, and then it's kind of a sliding scale as we move through the middle ground in between, kind of medium-sized lines. So I'm going to I use a mixture of thick and thin lines on both, on any character I draw, whether they be foreground or background. But Impulse is going to have a little bit more bold lines, thicker lines, especially around the contours, the outer edge of each element, to really help pop him into the foreground. If his lines were thin, Robin's lines were all thin, and Superboy's lines were all thin, then it kind of there wouldn't be any sense of depth. And I like to create a sense of depth. I know different artists can have different approaches to their line weights. I can't really think of anyone who does art that has like 0 line weights, like no line weight whatsoever. I'm sure they exist, I just can't think of anyone at the moment. So I'm not saying it always has to be this way. I'm just saying this is from the Todd Nauck experience, and you can take this and learn from it as you will, and take what works, leave away what doesn't. That's okay. But I like to create that depth, and the thick and thin lines really do that. And thin lines for something in the foreground is really going to be more kind of the detail lines, because not every line should be thick on Impulse here, because then that would look muddy. It would just be all competition. So I'm considering what are those key shapes going to have a thicker line, as like you see through the hair, but the inner lines of Impulse's hair are going to be thinner. Around his face is going to be thinner, so it's nice and crisp. The details of his costume, the lightning bolt lines are a little bit thinner, or some of the wrinkle lines are a bit thinner, where the outlines are going to be thicker. And so here I am adding some smoke, or not smoke, but dust. Dust is the better word. Some dust for Impulse skidding into the scene. Thinner lines, because I don't want them to be super thick, because it's dust. It's more airy, so I want there to be thinner lines, whether it be expression lines or the cloud part of the lines. Keeping those thinner because I don't want them to compete or overwhelm Impulse too much. I don't want there to be too much competition in that place. And throwing in a few little dots, just little particles that are kicking up from his stop. So these little elements help create a reality for our characters to live in, to be in, and helps make them interesting. Just really, sometimes we as a viewer, we don't always think about every element we're looking at as we're flipping through the comic. Sometimes we can go through and really do a hard study of what we're looking at, but just that kind of initial experience, it's just we're taking it in, and sometimes we don't even realize it, but it's definitely believable, or it creates a sense of comic book believability. It walks the line between fantasy and the real world. Our brain kind of fills in the gap of this is a reality, even though it's all, fantasy, but really makes it fun. So just adding those little things can help really give the reader or the viewer a little more eye candy, a little something more for their eyes to play with and look at and take in and focus on. Things to consider here. And I'm also throwing in some swoosh, some speed lines. And I want a nice clean line, so I'm using my French curve here. French curve is like a curved ruler. You use a ruler to get a nice straight line. Well, this curved ruler here, this French curve, helps me get that nice clean curved line. It's a technical tool, a drafting type tool. My dad had these because my dad was a draftsman growing up, so I'd go to his art desk, and I would borrow his French curves, and my sisters and I would trace them out and then make them into Christmas sleighs. We draw Christmas scenes with them. So I'm using this to create the, and you can make Christmas sleighs out of these too. Grab some French curves and draw up some homemade Christmas sleighs based off of the contour of this of the different French curves. Maybe I'll do a video like that. Maybe for the holidays I'll do a Christmas. I'll use a French curve. I'll trace it out and then fill in the details of a Christmas sleigh. Maybe not this year, but maybe next year. So I'm coming in here with red. Now I'm just doing full-on traditional red, just like his costume, because one, it is a different color from his costume color, and two, I'll be using a lighter shade of red for that speed that's going through, because he's moving so fast, you're not seeing the full red, you're seeing a blur of red. So it'll be more of kind of a light red to pinkish color. So full-on red lines here are gonna work just right, and also doesn't overpower the darker lines that we have of Impulse's figure and costume and things like that. And I'm also keeping in mind here not to cover up all of Robin with speed lines. I could have the whole speed line, the entire body of Impulse zipping across Robin, and it would obscure a lot of Robin, and we'd lose a lot of Robin detail. So it's more dense speed lines at the bottom where his feet are, and then as we move up, it's just a few lines coming off of his body, a few lines coming off of his hand, or both hands so much, but I don't want, it's covering up a little bit of Robin to show that Impulse is passing in front of him, but not so much that it's like, well, Robin's completely obscured. I didn't want to do that because I felt like Robin would get cheated, and we'd lose a lot of fun detail for us to take a look at. So here I was thinking, do I go a little bit further up? And I thought, no, that's too much. Now, time for the art gum eraser. I'm just erasing the lines around Impulse. I'm not erasing everything because we still have to ink Robin and Superboy. So just doing a quick initial erase here on Impulse, just because I wanted to see what does this look like inked without all the pencil sketch lines all around him. Now, nice thing about penciling lightly with an HB lead is that it's fairly easy to pick up those graphite lines without dulling the ink. Sometimes the ink can get dulled, like you ink and then you go to erase and the inks aren't quite so vibrant. It's still going to happen to a degree, but I find it happens less with the art gum eraser, more so than, like this is an art gum eraser right here. It's like a piece of putty that you can smush around. I also use just a regular plastic eraser. Now this can really help pull off or make the black lines look a little grayed out. I don't like that so much. It's only in desperate measures of like, uh-oh, I penciled a little too hard. I got to erase a little hard to get that to get those graphite lines off. There we go. There's the finished inks for Impulse. A lot of fun to do, and I hope you had fun watching. Hopefully you learned something that you can apply to the inks for your illustrations. If you liked what you saw, please leave me a thumbs up for this video. That helps a lot. And if you hadn't subscribed yet, now's a good time to hit that subscription button. Maybe set notifications to alert you when I upload new videos. And feel free to leave a comment or question below, and share the video if you'd like, if you know someone else who would enjoy watching this type of content. And yeah, that's it for now. I'm Todd Nauck. Keep on drawing, keep having fun. See you again real soon. I'll have it linked in the video description below. Right now. And if you're following me on social media or not following me on social media, we should retry this. And keep up to date with different comic book projects I'm working on and the art that I post throughout the... Missed it. So let's just get right into the inking. Oh. So Impulse gets the inking treatment first. I'll share. So thanks so much. Thanks so much.